This is the June 16th Solid Waste and Recycling Commission meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm Tim Besler, Chair. We'll go around and introduce everyone.
I'm Megan McHale. I'm the secretary.
Member of the Public Sustainable Fairfield, Becky Bunnell.
Andy Beal, commission member.
Mike Pasowitz, commission member.
First order of business is approval of the May 12th meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Approve. And second?
I'll second.
Mike seconds. All in favor? Aye. John Cattell could not be here. I knew that. And he sent we'll put it up for any of you who haven't seen it. He sent the monthly report. I don't think there's anything world-shattering here. The numbers, let's see, the MSW total looks to be a little higher in May than normal, but as do the single stream. But glass, apparently there wasn't a pickup in May, and food waste is an order of magnitude the same as it has been. I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me here. Any comments or about that? Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go. Let's see here. I think the main subject today is the status of our application for the DEP grant for food waste processing and unit-based pricing. Since the last meeting, we've been gathering a lot of information about costs, getting as much detail as we can about what an in-vessel composting system would cost here in Fairfield. We had a meeting with the first selectman and his staff to talk about this and make sure that they're on board with making the application. We learned in the meeting that we didn't have to go through all the elected officials prior to the grant application, but we do, if we're awarded the grant, then we have to go through the departments to approve that. What I've done is, let's see here. Waste. I sent this out earlier. What I've tried to, what is here is the best information we have at this point about what this would cost. And the major item is a Green Mountain in-vessel composting system.
Are you okay with me moving?
Oh, you can sit here, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let's let me make it bigger. Start with the first one. That's probably more readable. These numbers are based on budget estimates we've gotten from Green Mountain on a 400 ton per day capacity in-vessel composting unit, which will also have because it'll be designed to handle both food waste from the schools and from the residents in Fairfield, that will also have compostable trays. We need a shredder prior to the composting system itself, and we'll have an odor control system. The total for what we expect that Green Mountain would supply is about $284,000. Again, these numbers are preliminary. We're going to be spending the next week or so getting these updated. I had talked to them. Green Mountain owes us an updated pricing with the shredder, although I do have the number on that. They were also going to tell us what we need for receiving the food waste, which we're expecting would be on the Denali site, and also what would be needed for the storage of the finished compost. And the next part of that.
Actually, can I make a comment on that?
Yes, sure.
I think the the Franklin Miller shredder, they said was 2 tons roughly. It was pretty heavy. So there'll probably be some freight on that too, because the freight of 8,000 was just for the Green Mountain unit.
Oh, that's a good point, yes,
So
I think,
just a flag for you as, yeah, because you're taking care of these financials, but just if you could flag and make sure we get any freight, additional freight needed for the
Right.
shredder.
Well, and again, what I tried to do just today, because of our meeting, is to get as much information, but you're right, I expect these numbers will change, and yeah, the freight will certainly go up somewhat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For the shredder, is it only because we would have trays in it?
Bags, it's actually the bags more than the
The
trays.
bags more than the trays?
Oh, and I'm sorry, yes, the compostable bags are.
Okay.
That is something that Green Mountain says will wrap around their internal mixer
Okay.
or the auger, if you've seen that
Yeah.
device. And so, yeah, that has to be taken care of. Now, and in talking to Green Mountain about this, he says, it's just a good idea anyway, because you can also load your carbon source through that.
Okay.
The more anything that goes in there, that the smaller it is, the better the compost is going to be. So, and we had talked at one point about getting, rather than getting food in from bulk, loading grinding what needed to be grinded ahead of time, and then loading the vessel with the totes, and it's too labor intensive. It just wouldn't work. So we're going to we will have to have a food waste dumping area, which has to have some walls and probably needs a cover on it too, and don't have all the details on that at this point. Of course, a big part of this is if it's going to be in the Denali site, there has to be some work done there. And that Denali site improvement is really a very round number that I was given by Denali, based on his experience with basically moving things around, traffic control, foundations, et cetera. And we need a front loader. We need, I think the pad and the fabric cover that number is probably light from what I've learned since then. And engineering permits, I'm not sure if 20,000 will cover that or not.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So I've been working with DEEP to try and figure out what can and cannot be put in for the grant.
Yeah.
Permits are not eligible for reimbursement.
Ah,
so
okay, good point.
That has to be taken out, and engineering, I'm not 100% sure we can count that. What we should probably do, if it's going to be external engineering, we can probably count it. If it's going to be our engineers, we should call it out as in-kind. We actually get a benefit for any in-kind work we do, both in terms of pouring concrete pads, anything DPW does, we should get labor hours
Yes.
cost and material cost, because we'll call that out as in-kind. And that actually is seen as a positive in applying for the grant, that we're actually putting some of our own time and money
Yes.
in. Also, any analysis that we have for John's team, any labor to pull this together, just to do the implementation, not labor for ongoing operations.
Yep.
But anything pulling it together, we should get a cost and
Right.
hours and call that in kind. So if you're going to be coordinating all that, if you could ask specifically for their best estimate,
Well,
it actually makes our grant more positive.
Right,
too.
well, the one thing I'm waiting for with Green Mountain is, besides their budget pricing for their scope of supply, which I think obviously would be the vessel with the grinder, their odor control and all that, what the sizing we would need to accept the food waste, and then the sizing, how much area we need to, how big the pad needs to be for the finished compost. And once I get the square footage, then I'll go back to John and get the estimate he had given me a square footage number, but then he said, well, it depends how much weight you're putting on this thing, obviously. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to work all that stuff out. I mean, and I think that would all be, this 200,000 is a really rough number. I think that would it's probably still going to be the same order of magnitude. The other thing is we're going to have to bring in three-phase power. I think John said that's going to cost like 25,000, so.
You had a number at one point for that. 'cause
At one
I
point.
had a different recap, and you had 10,000 in for that.
Yeah, and I think that was, I think that was light.
And you had 15,000, and you had some money in for possible sewage if we needed to have a sewage connection.
Well, I think, I had some of that from John. I think this 200,000 number probably incorporates, again, this is only valid as of today. I've got work to do, for sure, yeah.
Can I also make a separate comment? So I've been reading through all the comments and questions that have come into DEEP for the grant, and they're pretty honest in saying that we can, you know, if our pricing is too much, they're just not going to give it to us because they're going to evaluate things on value for the money. And so a $200,000 site improvement for a site adds no value.
Well,
Denali should cover that themselves,
I
frankly.
got you, okay.
But it's gonna hurt our chances of getting the grant. The other thing they did say.
You're saying if you put 200 up, it's gonna make it difficult.
It's gonna make it difficult to justify giving it to us, because we're gonna be in the 60,000 and up size, which means all the big cities, but other COGs are also fit into that. So we will be competing
yeah.
against COGs and other big cities for a total of only $5 million. And right now, we're coming in, I mean, look at this, we're gonna be coming in, we're coming in, you know, they're just not gonna give it to us, one little town, when the other towns maybe have much more, they do it on value for, per resident.
The one
Why
thing,
would Denali do it though, for us?
They were gonna do it anyway.
They were, okay.
What they told me originally was, we have to make some, you know, move, we're gonna be rearranging our site anyway, so yeah, this is a perfect time to do that. They're just trying to get us to pay for it.
yeah, you're right. I mean, frankly, if there are legitimate costs for us to, well, certainly for the pad for the equipment, for a safe driveway to let people come in and out, that isn't, whatever Denali does to the rest of it, that's for them. Yeah, they're not going to get the state to pay for that. I hear what you're saying. And I haven't gotten, again, this was a first conversation with them. We have to get more details on that.
Well, the other thing that's tough is that when you look at the drawings that came in from Green Mountain, it's 3 different levels. We have a level site right now.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Their drawings are at 3 different levels. If I understood that correctly, just take a look. Maybe I misunderstood the drawings. I'm pretty good with engineering drawings, so check that. But it looked like they wanted to have one level here, the unit itself here, and then they wanted a slightly lower level here so that they could easily access and take out the food waste. So it looked like they were proposing different levels.
Well,
which is going to be costly.
I'm going to get on the phone to them tomorrow because,
Yeah.
I saw some of those drawings and I think they might have been making assumptions. Because at one point we were talking to them about dumping, just doing the totes and all. We got a lot more information to
I mean,
get.
luckily-
I don't, there's no reason it can't be level because we've got the front loader that can go up
Right.
and put it in the grinder. There's no reason, and they just opened the door to take the stuff out in the
Yeah,
other.
it didn't make any sense to me to have that 3rd level. But we do have that the buses are on the lower level. So if we do need another level, we actually have already, the site actually can accommodate. Denali is here, and the buses are probably about 6 feet lower right now.
Well, yeah, I think the Denali, they told me that they would go, that this would be located, when you go drive into their right, immediately on their right, that's where they want to put it. And then they would have a dedicated driveway for people to come in, residents and as well as the haulers come in and dump the food waste. So, and not to interfere with the
yard waste.
the other people, the landscapers and all that. So, but that's on them.
It's all on you.
We're not, they're not getting. But I'm going to be on the phone. with
I'm
them
sorry, I mean,
tomorrow.
that's why, it's on Denali?
Well, initially, Denali was basically saying, we have to pay you guys $50,000 a year to lease this space. We take care of everything and just, if you guys can scrap the 50 grand. But then, and I still think they think that's part of it, but then they said, but if you could get this in the appraisal, if you can get this in this format and win this, it'd be nice to have an improved spot. I don't know that they really, if that was critical or if they were just giving us.
They thought it was free.
Okay.
That's my point. Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, they should be.
If
paying.
the, but we said that, why should they be paying for it? I'm just wondering.
Well, no, they want to make changes for their whole site up
Right.
there.
Okay.
And that has nothing, some of it has nothing to do with the food waste.
The site changes because they're no longer.
My question is, they got to make changes for this, though.
Yes.
Right? That's what we're talking about.
Right.
And who's going to pay for that if it's not included in the grant?
Well, Fairfield would pay for that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And,
luck.
yeah, well, and we'll get to the ongoing costs in a minute here. That's a,
But I think that's what John's afraid of too, is that, where is this money going to come from?
oh, yeah. Well,
Not just John, but the town.
well, for sure. But I don't know if it was in our meeting with First Selectman or talking to John separately. The idea that they'll just waive that $60,000 roughly that they're paying. No, it's not going to work that way. You tell us what you will charge for operating this thing and taking food in probably 2 or 3 days a week. That'll have to be. But I mean, frankly, there is a large ongoing operating cost for this if we get this in-vessel composting system. And that has to be budgeted. That is going to be on the town. It has to be budgeted starting in the next budget cycle. And it's a number bigger than at least what I know now, it's a number big. But the town has to commit to that, or this isn't going anywhere.
We're not committed to it.
Or not commit. And I think that's the thing. I think before this decision in the next week has to be, do we want to do this? Do the elected officials want to do this?
We need numbers. We need to give them tight numbers.
Well, and let me just finish up with, and by the way, because in our meeting with the First Selectman, we talked about the idea of having 10 remote containers, food containers at 5 different locations. He said, he said he would like to see, regardless what happens here, 2 food waste containers at one location as a trial to see how much expansion the residents, how much expansion of food waste separation can be done by the residents. And this would be ongoing. This would happen pretty quickly. So by the end of the year, when we find out whether we get the grant or not, we'll see how much people really want to separate their food waste. And so I took 2 of those Metro Store containers out, and I guess I might as well say that Wednesday, we're going to Parks and Rec to talk about 2 possible locations and get approval for putting these 2. And if they're okay with that, it sounds like they will be, then we'll go to the town and ask them to get these containers on a trial basis. But at any rate, we're talking about the total of this now is almost $700,000. And the focus groups for I haven't talked to you about where you are with pay as you throw, but I think I used 30,000.
Yeah, we got, it was actually really helpful. John was in this meeting, and the 2 people from Waste Zero explained what other towns have done and what DEEP is likely to approve as pay as you throw, which is a slightly different version of, let me just turn this off, of the one that we talked about with the First Selectman, and that a lot of towns are proposing a 3-phased approach where we do sort of an upfront analysis, meeting with all of our town officials. We work the financials so that we make sure that this is a net neutral cost to the town, or that it makes financial sense. We price the bags accordingly. We work with, we do what are called waste audits with residents to show them how, when they think they're throwing away all this stuff, but when they actually see their total waste laid out, they realize that amount was actually recycling, this was food waste,
Right.
and they realize that they really, they brought 10 bags in and they really only had 2 bags of trash because these 2 were food waste and this was, Bay State and this was recycling. And so they're proposing that we kind of do that process, launch it and monitor it for a year, and then make a final determinant whether or not it met our expectations from a financial standpoint, and we could back off at that time.
Yeah.
Which I think actually would make John feel good that, he's actually getting a program that works for him.
So let me go to the,
Excuse me.
let's see, the operating costs. Yeah, this was, and again, these are numbers that, the best numbers I have right now. You know, and Denali initially said that they would, where are we? They'd be willing to operate this for about 60, if we get the waiver of the 5,000 month payment of the town, they'd be willing to operate it for about $60,000 a year. Whether that's a waiver or not, that's what and that doesn't surprise me because they would need, they have full-time employees there and one
Is
would
it
have.
50,000 a month or 50?
No, this is annual.
It's a total payment.
Oh, yeah, no, currently they
Oh,
pay
yeah, you're right.
$5,000
$5,000 a month.
Oh, that's what they're saying is equivalent of
Yes.
60,000. I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And then, you know, electricity, I use the kilowatt hours and equipment maintenance. But,
We'll have to add the grinder kilowatt hours to that too.
what's that?
If Jeff has them or Franklin Miller has those, there'll be extra electricity for the grinder.
Oh, that's true.
This was only the investment
That-
electricity.
That's true, yeah. Again, it shouldn't, compared to everything else, it won't be huge.
It's not gonna be huge. But I'm just saying, let's just make sure we can.
Yeah, the grinders are typically 2 or 3 horsepower.
Or at least they're not.
The ones I'm familiar with, the sewage plants are, usually 3 or 5 horsepower. Anyway, now the big deal is the hauling. And at this point, I used, and let me bring this up, I got these numbers from the latest, the school hauling is the latest quote that, well, not a quote, it's an estimate that they gave if they were to do all the hauling from the schools to within Fairfield. And I was pretty shocked because right now, they're looking at like 90,000 a year, assuming 10 months of the year. Today, they've been hauling all of
Less
it
than
in New
that.
Milford for
Yeah.
like 60 or 70,000.
It
Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense.
I was telling Tim, I think my suspicion is that the office there is just calculating based on a formula and not on the actual weight.
Hours?
Uh,
Or hours of time.
Or
It's
hours,
time and.
but like, I'm trying to think about, because like, if they're including, I mean, they must be including the tip fee at New Milford.
Yeah, which
right,
makes
in our
no sense.
tonnage.
Yeah, so there's no.
How, then there would be no tip fee here, so how can this be more at a shorter distance, so less hours and less guests? It does not make sense.
Well, it only makes sense in that they were bought out by a big company who has investors, and now they're trying to make up what they gave to Nick to buy the company.
And the other thing is too, like, this technically falls under the Board of Ed's budget. So I don't know if we should make this number look scarier than it is, if it actually falls under in a different bucket.
Well,
No, we actually want it to look good. We want it to look good because we want
Yeah.
the program.
Well, I think, here's the issue I have, which I don't really get at all. The 90,000 was in the school's budget, but wasn't private money used for a lot of that?
We did
Or
a
my
grant.
mistake?
So we did a grant for the first 2 years of the compost program, was a sustainable CT grant that was a matching grant. We raised $25,000 and they matched it 1.5
The
times,
state did?
It was
Sustainable
CT.
which is a nonprofit organization.
Okay. So you raised 25 and then a nonprofit gave you
Gave us
another
1.5 times.
57.
So that money is
Maybe that's
gone
60.
now.
So that's gone.
The compost has been written into the waste section of the BOE's budget, and it was not eliminated officially, fully. So,
And they're also putting it up for bid and they're
Right.
looking at.
so we're hoping to
Competitive bids.
renegotiate it because Woodside said they can't take the trays anymore. And really didn't make any effort, as far as I can tell, to find a different place to bring the trays. And so I know the operations people at Fairfield Public Schools went to All American, who are their haulers and who have recently started collecting food waste in Connecticut, and are hoping to get like a bundle deal that will save us money as a school district and taxpayers on.
Their quote, this is what's really not clear to me. When we looked at this stuff in January and February, it was the price out, the 3 cans or whatever it was, right? the whole school was operating at like $60,000, $65,000, right? And that's with all, I'm just looking at it going 90,000 times at most 200 tons, because we're not sure it's really 200 tons.
I think it's 200 tons with the trays.
Well, they don't weigh anything, they don't weigh it.
Well, no, that's right. They estimate.
But they estimated 200 pounds per can, and we have a much higher thought on weight. So all I'm really telling you is that number at 90 is $450 a ton. And that's not dropping it off.
And no tip fee.
Don't they?
And that's us having to pay all that money to get equipment that would take them.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
It doesn't work. The
Well-
answer is you just have to get a contract with somebody who's gonna dump that stuff at
Well, there's
the
three
burner.
other companies that can do this. Blue Earth, I think is it, no, the Hartford, I think it's Blue Earth, right?
Blue Earth could do it, I think.
Blue Earth already
Yeah.
picks up in Fairfield University, and I called them, and they are willing to give us a quote if we give them the details. And they're right now working with Guilford Madison Transfer Station, taking their food waste up to Quantum at $750 a month total.
What is the volume?
I'm gonna guess it's probably closer to 2025, but that includes a tip fee and that
Yeah.
includes all that hauling.
That's a totally different game though. That's 10%, that's like 10% of this cost.
Well, I think it
So
would be.
there's something,
I think we need to get
Volume-wise,
bids.
we're missing.
We need to get
Well-
action,
Action waste, we could ask.
we could do Action Waste, we could do All American and Blue Earth.
Yeah.
So these numbers, we can't put these into the town without
Right,
going
we
out to
can't
bid.
show this to Bill Gerber, he's gonna say,
well, it doesn't mean you can't show it to them.
He's seeing it right now if he cares to, so, but that,
No,
the point I want to, and we talked today about, I hope we can get just an estimate from All American at least, what they think it would be if they were hauling in town. I mean, if the trays are okay and they're just bringing it from the schools down to Denali, what do they think it would be? Because that's the number that the town,
Real
that'd be a
time.
more realistic number, yeah. I
and
mean,
that is what makes sense. This company is already running trucks every day of the week in Fairfield.
Right.
So it should not be this kind of cost. This should not be this kind of cost. So I don't know why it is, except that.
Well, I mean, I know you guys would like to keep that, but I mean, realistically, you're gonna have to go back to just normal hauling.
Well, it's in the budget for the schools. So it's not coming out of the budget.
I'm curious, do you know in round numbers what the regular trash hauling cost is for all the schools?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, is it?
I don't even know, and I have to tell you, like, when we started adding schools, so the school department was playing for like a pilot at a couple of schools. And I think initially Nick gave us an extremely discounted rate so that we could get it going in all of the schools. And I think that the schools were probably always paying a little bit more. And I think now it's like the schools are paying for everything. They just kind of like really jacked it up. I think Nick was giving us like 60% off.
Well, and if it was his business and he wants to, I can understand what.
Yeah.
Now you've got people that are doing their spreadsheets and looking at stuff. Oh, wait a minute! I can only imagine what's going on behind the
You
scenes.
start multiple bidding and they're pencils.
Well, and
together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it may not be, and I don't know what the rest of their business is. It may be that what they do here in Fairfield, especially the schools, is so much different from what they do.
They haul in Wilton schools, they haul in a lot.
Do they?
of
Okay.
They do a lot of school hauling.
It also like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like one of the reasons that we really wanted to get all of the schools doing it was because
We thought we'd save money, economies of scale.
Exactly, because of economies of scale. We thought if all the schools were doing it, it wouldn't be this outrageous price.
Right.
It would make sense And that's the opposite of what we're seeing,
This is a
so.
ridiculous quote, and I'm embarrassed to
Well,
even.
it may not be a
They should-
ridiculous quote, it may be what he's willing to charge, but if we don't have a better price.
Well, I think, so we're already, Emma is trying to get.
Emma is
a
trying to
call
get a
with
quote
All-American, and I
on-
was
yeah.
gonna be on that, and I'll go back to Blue Earth and do that.
Okay.
Get that quote.
And understand, and then, of course, for the 10 remote containers, I took what they quoted earlier this year for the 2 remote containers, then extrapolated it for 10. You know, assuming they're still holding to their $391 a month for 2 containers at one location, that this would be something like they would do for the other ones. But again, and of course, these operating costs are not something that are going to be in the grant application, but it's something that obviously
Town
the
needs to
people that make
approve it.
decisions have to know this. And again, you know, okay, 225,000 is a lot of money, 200 is a lot, but in the overall scheme of things, if the town wants to do this, it's something that you budget for, and there it is.
The other thing we should talk to the town about is currently, we are picking up a lot of waste from all of our parks, ball fields.
Oh, sure.
And that's all being done in-house at a much lower cost than anyone is gonna charge us outside.
Well, that's.
And we should look at an
How
in-house
does that,
cost.
how does that work?
They pick it up themselves, they go around and pick it up.
Who's they?
I think it's.
Public Works,
or
Public
Parks and
Works.
Recs.
So we have trucks that do that?
Well, no, wait a minute. Yeah, you're sure about that? They don't contract that out like everything else,
I
or?
don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, we should
when we
find
did
out.
our zero waste event down at Jennings, those were the public works guys managing all the recycling and, you know, that's a good question. Let's ask.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's important to know, because that's part of the bigger picture.
The only reason I think it's public works is because when you look at the breakdown of the actual budget that John gave us in terms of who's hauling and dropping off at the transfer station, Public Works was dropping off around 600,000 tons annually. I wrote it, I can actually give you that.
Well, it certainly would
The
make,
Board of Ed is dropping, yeah, but DPW is dropping off 355 tons and 242 tons a year to the transfer station. That's coming in.
well,
So I think they're picking it up. That's coming from all the parks and stuff.
well, I mean.
I mean, let's confirm that, but.
Well, let's confirm, because frankly, for these 10 containers, if we have 10 containers, and let's say they're only picked up once or twice a week, I mean, they need to be in a separate, they need to dump them in something separate, but.
It's an easy thing to do, yeah.
It could be done, or they can go out, maybe one day they go out.
Just
and-
grab
and
the
that's-
containers.
That's just the food waste stuff. Or, and frankly, they could, if they had 2, if they just simply took the containers out, you know, the totes out and replaced them with empties, take them down. But you're right, it's gonna be a lot less than paying someone to.
And what about,
Can I ask you guys a question? The quote that's 25 is based on numbers we did earlier this year.
Right.
Well, that's assuming, again,
That quote is $200 a ton. Well, that's the equivalent of $200 a ton if you fill 10 canisters weekly, right? The 90 is 450.
so I think that it's
even their
important,
own.
but I think it's important to remember that the way that Curbside calculates the cost is not the way that we calculate the cost of tonnage. So their cost is based on the number of routes, how many hours it takes, how many schools they can stop at each route. It's not, so like they charge us based on the number of pickups, not the weight of the pickup.
Right.
I get it, but what I'm really telling you is there's no economy of scale in this chart. The more you have to deliver to them, the more it costs.
No.
Yeah, it does.
No,
They're-
because what I'm saying is if we filled up, if the buckets were twice as heavy, it would still be the same price because the cost is the
Right.
pickups. It's not.
man hours and gasoline.
Yes.
They fill the truck, they have to come back on a second round.
One thing.
Perhaps, but
Yeah, you know, if you
Well,
got
there's also-
schools,
that's never happened.
well,
Yeah.
they will if It increases, is what you're saying, you know.
Well,
The
and
weight increases.
looking at their quote here, they have 80 64-gallon carts in inventory at the schools. That's what this is based on. One thing to consider, other people that are quoting this, if Curbside no longer has the business, they're going to take their carts back, presumably. Their name's all over it. So someone else has to
We have to
include
buy
the
80.
inventory of the carts, too.
I think we like.
Which I think, what's that?
They're not that expensive. You go to them.
No, they're not, yeah. You can, first time I went to look at them, you can buy them on Amazon. I mean, I don't know what
So
for.
I have one more question, which is about the way we in this town pay for yard waste or leaf pickup, right? So we pay for that.
So right now, that is taxpayer paid. We do a 3-year contract. We send it out to bid every 3 years. It's a 3-year contract. Big Little has won it every time that I've looked at it the last couple times. I used to know these numbers. I think it was around $155,000 a year is what it costs us, and that's for 5 pickups, 5 weeks of pickup. That goes mostly to We Care Denali.
Yeah.
They turned it into,
Something that they
so
sell.
they get for free.
They get it for free.
Yeah.
And
That seems like maybe something we should.
There's lots of things. we can
Reorganizing.
negotiate. Yeah, exactly. Because we're now going to use that for us. Those are going to be our Browns.
Yeah.
they're really, thinking out louder, the tough thing about this is we're up against this deadline without a whole lot of information.
Well, I think we don't-
If we decided we wanted to do this, we would sit down with, this would involve a lot of discussion and.
I think
The
that
one
we
thing
can
that was
still do
helpful
that,
for me
right?
though is that we don't have to have everything 100% nailed
Yeah.
to put the grant in.
Yeah.
What we can do is just call out that, this will be, I was looking at a couple other applications for this grant, and there, a couple of them, they say things like, we're putting this in, this is a
Good faith estimate.
well-educated estimate. We will, however, be putting this up to RFP, and this may change. But we will, and we can just say we'll cover the cost if it's more than this or something like that.
And I think, we'll certainly want to have in the application, as the backup, as the appendix, we'll want to have the budget quote from these different people. I assume they want to see that as just
They want to
making
know
these
that we've done
numbers.
our homework.
Yeah.
They want to know we've done our homework and it's a well thought out application.
Okay.
Which I think will be.
Let's see.
Just another quick number. Total estimated ongoing food waste costs. So $225,000 a year to move. Well, we don't even know what.
We know,
All I'm really saying is we're trying to get people the school right now is 200, right? It's kind of how they argue it, right? And the current drop-offs are 25,000. So unless we increase the amount of drop-offs by 9 times, you don't get 400 tons to divide your cost by. That cost is, if you think about it, even if you can get to 300 tons first year, that's like $800 a ton ongoing cost. That's absurd. You can get these guys to move this stuff for 250.
Yeah, this is embarrassing to even put in. I wouldn't even put this
Well,
quote.
I'm not so sure that it's,
I agree.
that,
We need backup quotes. Let's be.
well, I think.
yeah,
I don't think we can show a guy, here's the best estimate we came up with. I don't know that we should show. Not that it's
We're not even
wrong.
showing this.
but if
This
it's-
is internal.
Yeah, but I
internal.
know,
It's
but
Fairfield,
it's the reality of what we're seeing.
well, it's the reality today, because right now you own
This is the only quote we have.
These are the only quote we have. And now, the one, and then the next item is John told me that they would definitely need at least a half-time person to oversee this, the department to oversee it. So I put
Exactly.
40,000 in. I don't know if it's 50 or, it depends on what they attribute to a loaded first-time person. But, so that's going to be a cost as well. And he told me, he met with his, he knows the director of, up at West Hartford who has these bins, and he talked to him a lot about that, what's involved. And yeah, there's they have a coordinator up there that's spending time making sure everything is okay with this. So that's part of it as well. But my guess is this hauling should be, I would think half what they're
But
showing.
if it may not be.
Well, it may not.
Well, that's, no, but given Guilford's numbers, this is outrageous.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
Guilford
Guilford-
is really getting that number,
And of course, the other.
Yeah, but Guilford isn't, here's the question you could ask yourself in a hurry. We know one thing for absolute sure. It's $75 a ton to take up to,
Tiffy, yeah,
is a tip beef to drop at the closest
yes.
food place, right?
So we know that goes away.
I'm not saying it goes away. Are you willing, let's just say and those guys charge tip fees, so they're doing weight. So you do 300 tons at 75, really only costs you like $23,000. If you can get a hauler, you don't need to do any of this because the cost we're coming up with is close to $800 a ton, $700 a ton, and that's an ongoing cost. That's why they won't give us, the state won't give us this grant because we can't turn it, right?
The state will never see this.
Yeah, the state's not, they,
This is what our administration is gonna have to decide. Is this something we want to put our town taxpayer dollars into?
All I'm saying is you could do the exact same thing. My real point is, if we went to get the digester, you don't pay $22,000 in tip fees.
Right.
But since their hauling fees look more expensive, they're $450. Even if you get them down, you can find somebody that can deliver at $200 a ton. You're way better off. The extra, what I'm really getting at is the extra $23,000 per year for tip fee costs. Total. Saves you $225,000, right? And that's before you ask the state to give you $500,000 to invest in equipment that,
well,
my honest opinion, and I don't mean to, I'm all about trying to get this done. I just think you got to go to the cheapest possible pickup guy and just say there's no reason to have a combustor at this point in time.
well,
It's forcing us into a situation where we got to pay $225,000 as a town instead of $25,000.
But the 25,000, it's not like if we pay the tip fee to New Milford, the food is still gonna have to get hauled there.
yeah.
So the town right now
Which
is
would be
paying
this cost.
$65,000 to $70,000 right now just to do the schools.
Yeah, and I'm just, my point
The town
is,
itself is paying an additional.
okay, my point is really simple. If they charge you, right now, you can look at it and say, they're not even telling you what the weight is, but the weight's approximately 175 to 200 tons, somebody's told us. That's 450 a ton. So that's 450 a ton. So we can if that number's too high and we can bring it down, that saves us money, but that doesn't save us money because we have a combustible, or we have a digester.
Well,
Right, that's the proposal we're really making. We want a digester to get rid of 400 tons. But the question is,
What you're saying is that our current 200 tons from the school, 20 tons from the transfer station are costing us about $90,000 right now. School's paying 70,000, we're paying roughly.
I forget.
I'm just going to argue whether,
And you're saying that's $90,000 versus 225. Why would, if we doubled that, why would we even get an Investel composter? Because it'd be cheaper just to continue to haul it.
Well,
it's cheaper to pay haulers than it is to,
Well, yeah, the reason we're looking at this is not, frankly, we know that it's still going to cost more money for food waste than it does to send it to, we know that what but, you know, the state is putting this money up because we want to increase the amount of food waste because eventually it is going to make a big difference in the amount of trash they're shipping to Pennsylvania or wherever. And
Because we know the cost of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
well, I'm 100% behind trying to come up with the best possible way to get food waste out of the system and disposed of at the least premium relative to burn. But if you see somebody who's quoting you, I'll do pickup for 200 a ton, as opposed to this solution, which involves all sorts of extra monitoring, extra expenses, because you're not getting the convenience of dumping it for 75 a ton.
But, so here's my point.
I just think
I agree
it's
with
a
you,
low.
these costs are outrageous. I also think, frankly, if we chose to do it in-house, we'd value engineer it to the point where this would be cut in a quarter.
Look, I talked to John Cattell at one point. I said, I know that obviously with the staff you have now, you don't want this, but I said, couldn't this unit go down, right, and that's that area where they have all the
We don't even
inductors
do
right now,
Denali. We
and have
do
it done in-house.
ourselves.
Of course, you would need you'd need
give
the
them a
budget
dedicated
for it. And blah, blah, blah.
person.
I think frankly that, and again, I'm not the decision, the elected officials, the decision makers here. And, but I think that, because frankly, Denali, I'm going to find out what, make sure I update these numbers, but they're a profit-making company. They're not going to do this for free. And whether it's 60,000 or 70 or 50 or whatever, it could be done in-house for
Much
less than that. And we would have a lot more control. And of course, then the issue of, people bringing food waste in, they might have a separate lane down there. I mean, however that goes. So, but I mean, I think to me though, no matter what this ends up being, it's going to be something. It's going to be, I can't imagine it would be less than $100,000. But again, if the town wants to do this, if they want to separate food waste and make progress in this direction, even $250,000 is, what is that compared to the budget of the town of Fairfield, or John's budget of $5 million a year right now? So I don't know.
I think what we do is we submit, this doesn't get submitted to the grant.
Oh, absolutely
I think
not.
what we-
This gets submitted to the first selectman's office
And
to
we
say
don't
that
have to-
you have to understand what this is going to cost the town.
If you do this,
That does
That-
not need to reach the first selectman on the timeline of the grant
correct.
being due on the 27th. So we have time, I think we have time, 6 months really, right?
The grant will be, we have to apply by June 27th. We should hear back at the end of the summer. They did give us.
Oh, at the end of the
I-
summer, okay.
So call it early
You have
September.
more experience than I do.
Call it early
My guess we aren't going to hear back until November, but that.
It could be. What they're
This is a state.
What they're
I know
saying
that-
on the calls is end of the summer, which I'm taking to mean September, but you're probably, But I think what we could do during that time is ask Bill to ask John to look at an in-house costing. And use, and compare that to what we're getting by paying Denali and haulers.
Well, that'd certainly save all all the stuff, foundation costs and all the changing around of the Denali site. You would certainly have to have some kind of, make sure it's the right pad and all that. But here's the thing though, I really think it's important, and I want the commission's opinion on this. I think it's important to, whatever these numbers are, sometime before we put that application, to make sure Christine and Bill know what, in some order of magnitude, what they're going to be getting into.
Worst case
long term.
scenario.
Because, I mean, frankly, if he says, oh, there's no way I can ever get this through a budget, then we don't want to get a grant approved and then shoot it down.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
But I'd like to see an in-house costing, because I guarantee you an in-house costing wouldn't be anywhere near
Well,
this.
and frankly, and I think, yeah, by again, in this time
You
frame.
say that, but realistically, that means you gotta come up with. I admit these guys are making profits, right? But that doesn't mean that other people are equally capable of attaining the same scale or whatever. You'd still have to have guys you'd hire, you'd still have to have trucks you'd have to purchase.
Well,
I mean, there's.
well, we saw down in Rutgers that the guy that operates this never showed up, but he's working, he's running the farm, and he comes over every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess some people are we're hauling the food from the cafeteria.
Yeah, that's a.
And it would be it'd be the same thing. I think at some point, someone, where people are dumping the food, someone has to load it into the, but it's probably only, it's hours a day, 2-3 hours a day probably, and then you let the machine do what it does. Yeah.
And frankly, if we had a full-time head doing this, they could do a couple hours running the machine. The other time, they could go be picking up from the school. So you could probably run the whole thing with one extra person.
Yeah, and
I
you're,
really kind of doubt that. I mean, don't you think we would have, you need, like you said, you need trucks, you need other equipment, you got
I think
labor and.
We'd lease a truck. You'd want.
well, no, wait, I mean, if you're talking
Again,
about,
we're leasing, so it's another cost. It's
You're
not so
bring that
simple.
cost in.
if you're talking about, I don't agree, if you're talking about hauling, I'm not sure I agree with that, because again, you have to have this inventory of at least 80 of these bins up there, and someone has to be
The bins
responsible.
are about $100 each, not even.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I think I'd stick to the operation of this unit at the transfer station versus doing the hauling.
But if the DPW is doing hauling
Ask
today, it's all
what's our purpose here tonight? Let's
Yeah,
make-
we're going down a rabbit hole.
Our purpose, I'm thinking that our purpose is to, we've talked about all this. I think our purpose is, let's see.
I would say it's to find out what holes we still have so we can present.
Well,
measured
no
arguments.
matter, I don't know that we need to vote, I guess, I don't know if we need to vote on anything I'm going to continue to get more information here, as are you, and okay, from my standpoint, have something to present to the First Selectman's office, an updated version of this by next week. At the same time, and I was also thinking we need to meet with Andrea. Andrea's the one that's putting this together, right? It'll be on her letterhead?
It'll go from the town, but
From the town.
she does not write the grant. I'm writing the
You're
grant.
writing the grant,
She
okay,
doesn't write grants.
okay.
Isn't she the town grant writer?
She's the grant coordinator.
Oh.
She told me she doesn't write grants, but she will edit it and help, because I am,
Generous.
she will edit it and spell check and give her opinion whether we've covered everything and.
Well, I think to keep them, to wrap this up, I think, we voted the last meeting to go ahead and go ahead with this, work on this grant. I don't know that we need to vote on anything now, except, I'll entertain a motion, on from someone, anything you think we should have a motion on.
I don't think we need anything. The one other thing I wanted to talk about, if you feel like we've said what needs to be said about this, I mean, the TLDR is we're going to get more quotes
Yep,
on the ongoing cost, and we're also going to explore the possibility of of placing it at the transfer station versus at Denali.
right.
So you're going to Parks and Rec on Wednesday.
I just wanted to show everyone, I think I showed some of these photos. The two areas, and Parks and Rec seems to be I think they're going to go along with this. And the two areas that we're going to propose, one is at Lake Mohegan, which is this area here. That white strip is the width of the foundation needed for the bins, so we know it'll fit there.
Didn't we already get turned out at Lake Mohegan?
Yeah, because I think the reason I had it all the way on the other side near the woods, and that's when conservation got involved with it. This doesn't involve conservation because they have a portage on there, they've got garbage down at the other end. So this is when I'm going to talk about this, and then the other possibility, which is actually more central, is one of the areas at Brookside. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I ride my bike past here all the time. I'm thinking one area here, which is, now they park a food truck here every once in a while, but there's plenty of parking. The other one is possibly, this is a handicap parking area, but I've never seen anyone park there. It could be here perhaps, and then the other one is just further down along There's a large parking area there. You could put it next to those bins. So we'll see what they have to say. Are you going to attend?
I'm going to attend with you, but
Good.
can I ask you to bring all of your sites? Because what we need for the grant are where all 5 sites are going to be. We have to show
Oh,
a map
okay.
for the grant, showing that we have done our research, that we have town approval, conceptual town approval.
Oh, okay.
Of the 5 sites that we're going to place them.
Yes.
So if we could get 5 sites approved, that's what we need for the grant.
Well, okay.
you have 5?
I want to make sure we get the 2 because then we can go ahead and purchase the 2.
Yeah, but then I can't submit the grant without having, one of the things for the grant is a site of where, a map showing the sites.
Well, I've read it.
Maybe do it in less containers? It doesn't have to be 10, does it?
No, it doesn't.
We just picked 10, so we could, so let's see how many,
If we have
let's,
2 locations, then we have.
We want 5 locations.
well, then I'm not gonna
Too
put
many.
in for 10 in the grant.
No, right, you would
Well,
not.
it's 2 cans per
I
location.
know, I was thinking 5 locations.
Yeah.
Two per.
Well, let's talk more on this because
If we could-
if you want to talk to him ahead of time, fine. But I thought he came back and said, well, no, let's just stick with these 2 for
Oh,
now.
no, Bill wants that. I'm just saying for the grant on June 27th, I need to show a map showing where we're
I
gonna
get-
place
yeah.
look.
Potential. I mean, we don't need absolute approval. They're all town sites. I can get, okay.
I think you have the sites.
Aren't we getting ahead of ourselves? If it's not gonna be approved, why would we ask for 10? Just ask for 4
Well-
and grant.
Well, I think we decided, okay, let's start with the 2 that the first selectman says would like to have as a trial.
Right.
That way, I reduced it to 8. I think we want to go with, make sure that the town, every part of town has a couple of these nearby. And of course, the volume, we want to get, right now, the in-vessel composting has a capacity of 400 tons a year. We only have 200 or 50 or something like that. And obviously, we hope to get to at least the 400. So I think that's why, and of course, the containers are the lowest cost part of this whole thing.
That's the
This
part-
actually brings me to why I brought this up, which is that we need to immediately start an education campaign
Yeah.
for getting people to use
At least the 2. that
at
were-
least
that
the
were
2
approved
and
through-
remind them about going to the transfer station. And Chuck sold a bit, my husband did the market on Sunday. I was away and no one else could do it. So Henry and Chuck went. And he sold a kit to someone and he had to call me and I had to walk him through it, but he did great. And there are people interested. Right? So it's a matter of getting the information out. And I wondered things like when people's tax bills go out for the year.
We should get that in.
Flyer in that?
Well, the thing is, I don't
Yes, we
think,
can, and it's easy to
do
do.
they actually mail it?
It'll get taken away with
A
the
lot of people
40%
don't get it by
increase.
mail. A lot of people get it online, right?
Well, all right, 2 tax bills go out, your real estate
And your
tax and then
sewer tax.
your sewer tax and your car tax. So your sewer tax is now down to once a year. The tax assessor is very happy to send out inserts, by the way, and it's a very minimal cost. It's about $2,000 to get them printed. We did it with the auto bills last year, and it goes out in around July. We might be too late already, or
Well,
Who do we ask about that?
Well, on a different note,
out to the assessor and find out what the timing is.
okay.
if we don't even have 2 cans yet, so I wouldn't want to sell.
Well, we do have an existing program at the transfer station that
Yeah.
I think many people don't know about, and we can say or not say that we also have potentially future additional locations.
And why can't we put cans that's part of this, right, at the transfer station?
Well, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, instead of using a totes to put the, you know, get to
I
it.
think
Yeah.
the issue with the transfer station is we're trying to get a 24/7 drop off because a lot of people
Yeah.
work and they can't
But it
get
was
out there during.
They don't
You could
all
still-
have to
you
be
could still go to the
24/7,
transfer
right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
You can still go. Now, I was gonna say, the minute, okay, once we get past the Parks and Rec, I think then we wanna start getting this purchase order going for the, at that minute, let's talk about, we need to start the education
Yes.
then. And we're talking the next week or something.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
think we're getting ahead of
Yeah,
ourselves
we
here
are.
too.
But I mean,
Well,
if we don't do education, we're
I
done.
feel like, yes, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in terms of like purchasing the bins and where they're going to be and whatever, but we have a program already that is underutilized and we
Okay.
need to figure out how to get more people using it. And this is a piece of that, is having additional locations. It's a big piece because the hours of the transfer station are not conducive to.
It's also roughly from my house, I can tell you, it would
far.
be a 50-minute round trip.
But
And I'm not doing 50-minute round trip. I mean, I am.
No, I
but
get
The
it.
average person isn't gonna take 50 minutes so they can drop
Right.
10 pounds of food.
Right.
It's just not efficient, you know, it's like an hour.
Another, and just
If we're
quickly.
looking for economics as an incentive.
I need to go, so.
Okay,
I'm gonna-
let-
I don't think we
well,
have.
well, let's talk, okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, in favor? Aye, okay, thank you.